I think we're ready to go. Call the meeting to order. Please rise. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first on our agenda tonight, I want to open. Now I gotta go to another link because I was about to read. The agenda first starts with a public hearing. I want to call the public hearing pursuant to statute 118.38 sub 1 sub B to order. This is pursuant to a request to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. I want to call the public hearing pursuant to statute 118.38 sub 1 sub B. Or your YouTube must not be muted. This is pursuant to a request that to be made to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction to waive the minimum number of hours of instruction as set forth in statute 121.02 paren 1 paren F for the 2021 school year due to the ongoing COVID-19 public health emergency. So as part of the public hearing, I'll ask for any written or recorded comments that were submitted by the 4 p.m. deadline as set forth in our agenda. Is there any such comments? No. All right. Hearing none, I will then call for comments within the room. This is our first call for public comment with regard to a request be made to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction regarding a waiver of the minimum number of hours of instruction. Hearing none, I'll now make a second call for any public comment regarding a request to the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction pursuant to section 121.02 paren 1 paren F for the 2021 school year. Hearing none, I'll make a third call. Any comment from the public regarding the request of the district to the Department of Public Instruction as set forth in the statute, and that request is being made pursuant to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Hearing no comment, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. So moved. Second. It's been moved in second. All in favor of closing the public hearing regarding pursuant to section 118.38 sub 1 sub B, say aye. 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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it and the hearing is closed. I'll now go on to our agenda for our meeting today. Are there any recorded or written comments for tonight regarding non-agenda items? All right, there are none. Are there anyone here who wish to speak on any non-agenda items? Hearing none, move on to recognitions, and I'll turn this over to our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Grambo.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
I should have said Dr. Grambo, right?
Thank you.
All right.
We have two very special recognitions tonight. We're going to start with our recognition of the One Act play. We're going to invite Lori Harmon, Sandy Burke, and Owen Olson up to the table to be recognized. Sandy and Lori are both English teachers at the high school, and they're co-advisors of the One Act play. The One Act play is an offshoot of forensics. So it's part of forensics, but it sort of operates by itself. I interviewed Lori and Sandy and learned a little bit more about this. And you're going to hear just a little bit about what a wonderful opportunity the One Act play is, especially during COVID. Provided an opportunity for some kids that don't have access to their theatrical passions to still participate, and some very special awards. So the overall experience was awarded state level recognition as the All-State Award for the One Act play, Bad Audition, Bad Actors. In addition to that, Owen was awarded the Ensemble Award for Outstanding Individual Actor. And we'd also like, Tatiana's not here, but in talking to Sandy and Lori, she served as the student director. And from what I heard, took charge, did a great job of leading that. So a wonderful leadership opportunity for Tatiana. And several other participants as well that couldn't be here tonight, but also deserve our recognition. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sandy and Lori to tell just a little bit about the one act play and then entertain any questions from the board.
Oh, I'm sorry. I won't touch anything then. Okay. Are we good, Ryan? So we've been doing this for a couple of years now. Sandy, you're ahead of me. And the kids get together, they choose a play. It's a one act play. They put it on, it's really supposed to be very student led. And it is. We work really hard to kind of step back and just facilitate. And this year was really very, very challenging because rather than going to locations and performing our play multiple times, hopefully, we had to record it. And Ryan Delacroix, who we really want to recognize, was a great, great help for us. He made himself available. He helped us to record it. He processed the recording, and then we had to submit it. And the kids had to wear masks, and we had to fit them with microphones under their masks, and we had to keep the distance. And it was so challenging, but they were awesome. They rose to the occasion. We got costumes and everything going, and it was a great opportunity, I really think, for all of them. And it was wonderful to see them come together. They worked as a team. They got the ensemble award, and they really pulled together and it was just great teamwork all the way around. Anything you want to add, Sandy?
Yeah, 'cause from beginning to end, they choose the play. So we read through and several plays, multiple plays, and they finally settle on a play, and then they also improve. They take the feedback from the judges, and they did a great job of that too this year, which again was everything was just different because normally you get it like right there, the judge talks to you, and so it was just a real different process this year. But from beginning to end, it was just very rewarding and valuable, and we really appreciated the effort that the students put into it this year for sure, with all of the different parameters. So.
And we had some COVID scares and things like that, some quarantines and things to deal with, but they were champs. They really were. They all chipped in. So.
And Owen, would you like to say a few words about the experience from your perspective?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, so as they said, it was just an all around great time. Got to meet new people, act on a stage, just do the things that I love to do. And even in a COVID year, it was great because this was the first year that I've done it. And in the previous years, I've been a person who does the musicals and the plays through the actual high school, not the club. But since those aren't happening this year, it was a great opportunity for me and some others to find a new group of people who have the same interests as me and just have a great time. It was very fun.
Owen played
That's it.
3 parts. He really embraced his role, so.
Rob?
I hope
should
that
say.
none of you have seen it.
No. Mr. Minor has seen it, so.
You know.
Yeah. So.
Go ahead, Rob. Did you have a question?
I did. And so how many students were there? And is this a freshman through senior opportunity, or can you tell us more about the group?
We have a small group. It's fluctuated the last 3 years that I've been a part of it. This year we had 8 students.
Mhm.
And yeah, we have, it is freshmen through seniors. The student director is a senior, unfortunately. So we're gonna lose her for next year, but somebody else will step up because she did not she was not the director last year. And so this was her first year doing that. And yeah, she was just amazing at it. So yeah, we're a small, compact group, but hopefully, word will spread and we'll just kind of keep growing the program to the club.
Yeah, Tatiana Lindsay is her name, and she was the director. And then should we name all the kids? I don't know. Okay. Do you? No. I've got to
Do you not
go.
know their names?
I do know their names. You're putting me on the spot now. Renee Miller, Tatiana Lindsay, Taylor Van Dyke. See, I'm nervous. Taylor Van Dyke, Kayla, Stella Minor, yes, Tobin, Bone Steel, and I think is that all? Oh, how could I forget Evgenia? And Evgenia Roth, yeah, so.
Okay, Heather?
So in response to your, I hope none of you have seen it, Owen, I'm curious. I'm curious, now that we know this was recorded for submission, is it out there somewhere that if
Oh,
folks
that's-
are watching and they would love to watch it, is it on the site or could it be on the district site or somehow linked so we could see it?
We would love to do that, but it would cost us a lot of money in rights. We had to be
Oh,
really
right.
careful
Right.
with, in fact, we had a showing for parents last week. But we had to be very careful with theater rights because somebody, wrote that play and so we can only perform it for in certain situations. But if you want to know what Owen did, he was a Shakespearean actor and he overacted. And then he was an interpretive dance,
Yes.
modern dance.
Wearing a,
Yeah.
oh, I'm good.
Well, you could recreate the moment for us right now, Owen. We're open to
He
that.
wore, yeah, right. He wore, I had a morph suit. We get very creative with our costumes. I had a green morph suit. I don't know if you know what those are. They're like head to toe that you can zip it all the way up.
Like a leotard, but for men.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so he wore that with some appropriate coverings. And, we modified it. And so he wore that. And then what was your other one? You were just,
I can't remember.
you were,
Oh, yeah,
you
a
were
woman, yes.
Charlize.
Yes.
And he was a very demanding actress who expected some pretty special treatment, things like chocolate covered Skittles and things like that. So he really embraced his roles as all of those characters. So
And
I'm
Owen,
sorry.
and Owen, are you going to go on to acting or theater beyond high school?
If the opportunity presents itself, right now I'm planning to go to music school actually. But if there's a theater group anywhere in my future life, I hope to keep it a part of my life for as long as I can, whether it's acting or directing or supervising, whatever.
Oh.
He's at
Yeah,
the
and I'm at the
Phipps right
Phipps doing
now.
a show right now.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll watch for you for future Tony Award nominations.
Yeah,
We'll see.
maybe in modern dance. We don't know.
There you go. All right, well, very good. Thank you and congratulations.
Thanks.
All right, we have a second recognition. Dave, is that yours as well?
It is, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Another very special recognition. We'd like to invite Madison Meyer up to the table. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Madison Meyer because I'm not sure if most of you had the chance to meet her yet, but she works in the district at Willow River for school age care in North Hudson, where she does recess duty. And in addition, I'm sure you can see, she proudly serves our nation as a soldier in the National Guard. I had the chance to interview Madison as well, and she's absolutely delightful and very dedicated to the district and our country. And we have a lot to be proud of sitting at the table because it's not just Madison we're recognizing tonight. Madison went out of her way to recognize two of our staff members and in many ways the district as a whole. So she nominated Michelle Hagan and Tracy Habashaline for the Guard's Patriotic Employer Award, and both received this distinguished award. It is an award that essentially recognizes employers that are incredibly respectful for those that answer the call to serve and make sure that they treat our soldiers with respect and dignity. And it's not, as Madison described, an automatic. She had to go out of her way to make sure that Tracy and Michelle were recognized. So I'll turn it over to them to tell a little bit about the award. And Madison, if you could start out, that would be great.
Sure. So within my unit, I had gone to my first sergeant and asked him how it works for putting your employer in for the Patriot Award. And he gave me the contact information. And so I called that person. And from there, they said that they thought that Tracy and Michelle would both be eligible for the award. From there, he sent me a link and I wrote up a little short paper for both of them about how kind and supportive they are, how they're always checking in with me. They make sure that I have anything and everything I need when it comes to my service, which is very appreciated. COVID's been crazy for everybody, and for the National Guard especially. We've had to work elections. I have people from my unit that have gone on COVID orders to help with COVID relief or vaccinations and stuff like that. So it's been a hectic year, and it's really nice to have two people that very much care about me and my service.
Michelle, do you want to tell a little bit about your perspective and how you accommodate Madison service?
Sure. I was really surprised to get the award from Madison, because it just seems like this would be something that you would do. It wasn't that I was working hard at it. Tracy and I try to support people who need to have time off, and we also are very proud of Madison's service to the country. So when we did get the award, which was really nice, and I have it in my office, and we got this nice pin too. And but at the end of the day, Madison is an awesome employee. She has a positive attitude. She works well with the students. They like her. She came on, was it Veterans Day?
Yeah.
In her outfit, and the kids were playing in her pockets and
Yes.
wanting to try on the outfit. So she's just a great employee to have. And so Tracy and I would not want it to be hard for her to, or feel conflicted at all about having to be gone for this service. And we are a lot of times short-staffed, and she could possibly feel like she was leaving us in a short-staffed situation. So I always feel it's important to say Tracy will be more than happy to come down and sub. And then she does. So it's a real proud moment for school age care. Thank you, Madison.
And I'll just add that, yes, this is a very special honor for Michelle and I, but really it is about Madison and her service to not only the school district, but to country. And she wore her uniform again today. So that's, I mean, she's an awesome role model for our kids. And they definitely enjoy that. And I just add that Madison, along with her school age care colleagues this year, have served our families and kids with courage, commitment, and compassion. They've been at it since March. They've been at it since before we had mandated masks and before plexiglass. They were there. And Madison had that additional duty to serve her country at a time where the National Guard hasn't been this active since World War II. So hats off to Madison juggling both of those.
Very good. I've got board members that have comments. So Rob?
No, Madison, first off, thank you for your service, certainly. And thanks for nominating both of these wonderful people. You know, Tracy, Michelle, thank you very much for what you're doing in support of our troops. Frankly, every employer should be nominated. They should earn that opportunity. And if they're not, shame on them. So thank you for everything you're doing.
And Sue?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think this year has been the year where we've seen our guards, National Guard, involved in many dimensions of our day-to-day life. And I guess I didn't know about this connection to Michelle and Tracy. And so I guess I'm not surprised that our employees multitask and fill in many ways that we're not aware of. So thank you to both of you and congratulations.
I do really good on the days where they're working on shrinky dinks. I've learned how to operate the machine. I'm awesome now.
All right. And Bob?
Just like, again, thanks for everything. Great awards, great effort. And, I always wondered what it would be like to be able to go into a classroom in a uniform like a firefighter, policeman, military. I mean, you're just a rock star when you go in with those kids. And, I used to sell paper and printing, so pretty non-exciting for the kids, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Well, yes. Yeah, thank you again, Madison, for your service. And this is a year where our reserve and our service is protecting, the National Guard's protecting both democracy and literally life and death with the vaccination. So really appreciate that service. Also, thank you for the nomination, bringing the recognition, and congratulations to Tracy and Michelle. All right. So with that, thank you, Dave, for presenting the recognitions. I'll turn it over to Dr. Olet for our reports.
Okay. All right. So hopefully you can hear me all right. And again, thank you for her service. She's been outstanding. Our whole school age care staff has just really risen to the challenge this year. As Tracy alluded to, I mean, they've been going, providing childcare even from the very beginning for our first responders and keeping things going. So it really is great to see that recognition. As we look at the COVID operational update, a couple things I want to touch on. Vaccination update. We are still in a waiting game as far as it goes with our staff and whether or not when we think the rest of them are going to get vaccinated. This is the week that we have about 2/3 of our staff that did get their first round shot. So this week there's about those same folks are getting their second round shot. And so we're kind of observing what that looks like. We've had some people already get their second shot, trying to make sure that because you hear of kind of the adverse reactions to the second shot, and it's for the most part been pretty uneventful, I think, as we work through that. But we are working through that. I will say I had a call with St. Croix County Public Health today. The ability to come across vaccine right now is becoming more and more challenging. I think 2 weeks ago they requested 500 doses of the vaccine. They received 0 from the state. Last week, they requested 400 doses of the vaccine. They received 50. And so now that is in addition to the second round vaccines. So, one of the questions that I did ask in the call today was, are we going to anticipate that this is going to be like a 3 or 4 week cycle where for 3 weeks, we're going to see people get their first round shot. And then for another 3 weeks, it's going to be all the second rounds. And then again, we'll go to the 3 weeks again, first round. And that had not been communicated one way or the other at this point. But there's also some concerns because they are talking about mass vaccination sites down in Milwaukee and Madison is the state pooling all the vaccinations to be utilized for those mass sites down in the southeast corner of the state, which not that it's bad, but we have needs up here and we'd like to make sure that our residents up here are still getting it. I did reach out to several of our elected representatives to ask so that they could ask that question of the health Department of Health, because it seems like our local health officials have tried to ask those questions, things like that, and they're not getting much for a response from the state level health department as we work through this. So it's just kind of something to keep in mind. The county has countywide, both through the county and through the private providers, they have administered almost 10,400 vaccines, of which 8,000, a little over 8,000 have been first doses and about 2,300 have been second doses. So it's both encouraging and somewhat disheartening considering that we have 90-some thousand residents in the county. And here we are in February and we have about just under 3% that have actually completed the vaccination cycle all the way through. Now we're hoping that that's going to change as some of these new vaccines come online. They did say today that they're hoping that by March, they would see an increase of about 20 to 25% of vaccines, the amount of vaccines available. And then by April, about another 20 to 25% increase from there. And a lot of that has to do with potentially a couple of these new vaccine makers that are working through the emergency authorized use process as we work through that. So we'll continue to monitor and try to get this done. Our staff, like I said, we've had about 2/3 vaccinated. I know there were some questions about whether or not we were unique. I think there are quite a few school districts across the state that have had the opportunity to get their staff vaccinated. And so it's not as though Hudson was overly unique in trying to do that. And so we're working through that, seeing when we can get the rest vaccinated as we continue to move forward. A couple items, other items related to COVID. We are starting our COVID meetings as we talked about. It's kind of almost like the return to learn plan that we were doing in the summer, but almost in reverse, as we kind of talk about how do we potentially look at long term winding some of these things down, but also what does the summer look like, and even next fall. Starting to have conversations about, will we have the ability to run prom? Will we have the ability to run graduation? If we do those things, what do they look like? And it's going to look a little different. Or what are spring sports going to look like? And also just trying to understand, as we, ratcheted things down, or as we, kind of tighten some of our mitigation strategies, the other piece is then eventually how do we start to release some of those strategies so that there's a plan in place for that. So now it's not just all of a sudden we go from one day, everybody being in mask and behind plexiglass and all these things, to all of a sudden the next day, it's like, no, everything's fine. And so, looking at what are some gradual release things that we can try and see what happens. And always know that we can always tighten some things up as we look at those things. But again, that's kind of some of the ongoing discussion that we're going to be having over the next few months as we move forward. As far as cases in the district, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can share my screen. Okay, and I know that's somewhat hard to see, but in our count as we're working through right now, over the past, it'll be 14 days tomorrow. We've had a total of 2 cases at the high school, 2 cases at the middle school, 1 at Rock, 1 at Prairie, none at Holton. North Hudson has had no cases over the last 2 weeks. Rivercrest has had 3, and then Willow River has had a total of 4 cases. And I think the thing to keep in mind with some of the Willow River cases is it was a family of siblings. And so some people might say, well, gosh, that's a lot more cases than Willow's had in a week. And so it was a family situation. And so as we go to the top, and again, I want to make sure that I don't make everybody sick as I scroll to the top, but I think it's important for us to see when we look at the total counts, we have had 338 cases in the district since we've started the school year. You can see kind of where our numbers are sitting, but essentially this 2-week period we're at 13. We would anticipate that we may have a few cases based on the way numbers are going. We have a few more cases by the end of the day tomorrow, but this would be arguably one of the best 3, top 3 or best 3 2-week periods we've had since we've started school, which is really great considering we have been face-to-face instruction with all of our grades since was it the 18th of January, I think is when we had or 19th of January, because we weren't in school on the 18th, which was a Monday. But we've had everybody 100% back to back since then. And we've actually been in hybrid since we returned from winter break. So it is definitely positive, and we'll continue to keep an eye on that. We know that there's obviously different variants out there and different strains, and we're kind of keeping an eye on those things. But again, this is really good news. And I think really, as we looked at some of the data from St. Croix County Public Health that they shared with us today, one of the things that kind of seems to be the case is our cases in school tend to mirror that of the community. I mean, it's not as though we are seeing more cases as far as, when it accelerates and when it comes down. So as of right now, the county numbers are in really pretty good shape. I'm going to take us to this next screen here. So the screen that you're seeing here, this is the daily totals for the state of Wisconsin. I think this is, very promising. 543 new cases today in the state of Wisconsin with quite a few people. I mean, that the having about 1/6 positivity rate is actually better than where we've been. So that's really promising. As we go down, you could kind of see where the trajectories have gone, and we're on that downward slope, which is great. But then the other piece, this piece of information that we look at, oops, I'm sorry. I'm trying to look at the screen up there, but I should be just focusing down here on my computer. So when we look at county data, the average, over 7 days, last 7 days is 11.4 in the county. So that's per 100,000 residents, and we're not quite there. But then the other piece of data that we now have access to, which is what our school closure matrix is tied to. Let's see if it comes up. Of course, as we're live, it's taking a little bit longer. Oops. So within the school closure matrix, you can see the Hudson School District, I'm sorry, within the county's data, our number is 6.4 per 100,000. And so when we go to our school closure matrix, what that does is that puts us almost in the far left-hand column, which is fully face-to-face. And so we are really in a pretty good spot as we are moving forward. And really, when you look at the entire state, in general, the state's in a much better spot than where it was, a month ago or 2 months ago. And so that's great news as we continue to look at those different counts. So any questions on COVID or the numbers or anything else that, related to COVID? Okay. Andrew, go ahead.
I didn't know if you wanted to mention quick, we hadn't talked about it, but because of the news with the Ed Foundation,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
we're doing year 2 of the wellness walk. And this year we're focusing on wellness overall. So not only the physical, but also the emotional and spiritual health of our staff. And so we're really pushing on it. Hopefully staff will be engaged regardless of their fitness activity level. We want participation and engagement. And Nick had reached out to the Ed Foundation, and they are willing to fund it. So that's super exciting for us. And we just had that news today. So I thought maybe that'd be a good opportunity to share. And if y'all want to participate and sign up on a team like you did last year, hopefully you'll want to do that. We have our team.
Yeah.
Cabinet's called the Corn Team. We are
Quarantine.
trekking through the national parks. We're going from Canada to Mexico. And so you'll have access to the My Virtual Mission app for 3 months instead of 1 month. And again, we're going to do lots of fun activities throughout this first month.
And when does it start?
It starts this Friday. So if you want to sign up, you got to sign up on Wednesday. And we have a little goodie bag too if y'all sign up. So it's a win-win.
Yes, Carrie.
If we are to sign up, can you send a specific link that we can click on and be in? And
Yes, and we are doing it different this year too, where Holly Thorson in my office is manually signing everybody up. And then she's going to be our point person. So anybody that needs help, she'll be sending out specific help and be a contact that we can.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Carrie,
It's a
for
little
asking for that
tricky
help.
to get it all to sync together, but it's really fun activity and we have a lot of fun stuff planned coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, staff is, especially in this year where there's been a high level of stress and everything we're asking people to do. It's great to be able to try to do some of these self-care initiatives and wellness initiatives. And Andrea's department's really done an outstanding job leading that charge. And people love it. I mean, they're really into it. You said over 300, is that what you said?
Yeah, last year we had about 350 and we're hoping for about the same this year. And what's also great is that we're getting teams, but we're also getting individuals. So everyone just wanting to be part of it. And I think that's a really fun message and we'll keep going with it. So if you sign up, we'll give you more activities that you can participate in as well.
Great. Right. So continuing down the list, registration update, just to kind of brief update on registration is 4K and kindergarten registration is out and we are actively taking children to register for that, parents doing that for their kids. Our school registrations are open. Middle school and high school have started to register for classes for next year. And we have actually initial course request, I think. I don't know, Dave, if there's anything you want to add registration wise, or it's just, this is kind of the season.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add, if you remember last time we talked about the 4K change where we're exploring some other opportunities in the district, we are gathering that data through that process. So in the coming months, we'll have more idea of what that interest is and we'll let you know.
So next one on the list is the school board candidate forum. I know we have two incumbents that will be there, I believe, tomorrow night. So that I believe Tracy sent out earlier today to all of our parents a link to the YouTube live that will be running, just kind of like what we do with board meetings. But we will allow up to 150 guests in the auditorium, the first 150 that would like to come. We will allow pies in the face to candidate. No, I'm kidding. But no, it always look good. And I believe it's being sponsored or put on by the Parents Association. Is that right, Tracy?
Middle school parent group.
Yep, Middle School Parents Association. And so it is from 6:30 to 8:30 tomorrow night. So again, you can watch that or attend live as we do that. And then the last thing I just want to touch on, it's not quite on the agenda, but I'll make a stretch, is we do have the neighborhood meeting for the high school sign. We've been trying to put a sign at the high school. The Ed Foundation is financing the sign at the high school. Part of the city's revamped ordinance process and conditional use permit process requires us to have a neighborhood meeting with all the neighbors within 300 feet of the high school property. Anybody would like to attend. So that's going to be on Thursday night. If you would like, I will make sure Tim sends you a Zoom link so you can Zoom into that meeting if you'd like. That's at 5:30 on Thursday. Just an opportunity for any of the neighbors to ask questions or comments. And then after that process then goes into us applying for a conditional use permit. And then it heads into the city's process and things along those lines. But that's the first step. Go ahead, Gary.
Sorry, will the link for the candidate forum be on the website also?
Yes, we'll have a post.
I didn't realize
so
it'd be
it's-
limited
yeah,
to,
and
okay,
and it's gone out on social media too. Today.
thank you.
Sue, did you have a question about?
Yeah, just a
report?
quick one about the sign. So do we have any examples to show the community people how the lights are gonna work and
Yep.
like, this is an example of bright, but then, and so on. Remember, I think
Yeah,
we had some
absolutely.
special
We
kind of
actually,
lighting.
we had the vendor actually deliver a sign about this, similar in size, similar functionality. It was on a trailer. They brought it in, they ran it for several hours, both while it was light out and then when it started to get dark and neighbors were able to come and take a look, and city council people were able to come and take a look. And so that was actually, was that in August, maybe? I think it was. And so they've had that opportunity. So better than just, doing it on paper, we actually brought out what exactly, as close as we could to what exactly be going up there. So, and I think what they saw was our ability to keep that sign dimmed over time. As it got darker, the sign got darker. And then also the new city ordinance has us, I think, turning it off at 10:30 at night anyway. And so I think we can accommodate a lot of those same things. So.
All right.
That's it.
Next
That's all I have.
report. Thank you for your report. Next report is summer school update.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick update on summer school. We've actually started the process of developing. You'd think in February, we're in the middle of everything, but summer school, we actually get the ball rolling in January. I want to recognize Anita Stillwell and Annette Kelly in the teaching and learning department. They do a lot to keep summer school working. They do an amazing job to make sure that all goes smoothly. This year, we're excited to be able to expand opportunities. If you can picture where we were a year ago and thinking about summer school, just a giant question mark. We had no idea what we'd be able to do. So it took a lot just to get that launched. It was a successful yet downscaled summer school. We're looking forward to being able to expand some opportunities. As Nick said, this is an opportunity to start to roll some things back and get back to a level of normalcy. A couple things we'll be focusing on: expanded opportunities based on student interest, and then strengthening transitions. We see summer school as an underutilized opportunity to strengthen the transition from 5th grade to 6th grade, and then from 8th grade to 9th grade. So those are some of the things we'll be focusing on as we do our planning. At the elementary level, the first session will be June 14th to the 25th. Registration begins on March 1st. Be held at North Hudson and Hudson Prairie from 8 to noon. Again, we'll have some new courses and a new format where some of the courses will be 1 hour, some will be 2 hours, and some will be 4 hours for those deep dives into areas of interest for our students. We'll be ramping up the class size a little bit because we brought it way, way down last year. It'll still be considerably less than we would have in a typical class during the school year. And then our August is when we do our reading and math camps, a couple changes there. It will be open to all students instead of just targeted students. We believe it's an opportunity that many students will be able to benefit from, and we want families to be able to make that choice. That runs August 2nd through the 13th. Registration begins on April 1st. At the middle school, same dates as the elementary, June 14th to the 25th and August 2nd through the 13th. Again, looking at some transition work, helping students with that transition from 8th grade into the high school, looking at some fun enrichment courses. And there I'd like to recognize Trevor Hagerman, the associate principal that leads summer school and has brought some exciting new ideas to the table. At high school, and when we say high school, we're saying 8th grade plus, because we have our 8th grade students do most of their summer school work at the high school. So they have that opportunity to get used to that building. They're running their dates a little bit differently. That'll be June 7th through July 2nd. In addition to some of the other things we've discussed, they also run Raider Elite there. And then a lot of their summer school is credit recovery for students that need a little bit more time to meet the expectations of each course. And then extended school year, got this information from Aaron. This is for students who in their IEP calls for additional instruction throughout the summer. Session 1, July 2nd or 12th, sorry, through the 23rd, and session 2, August 2nd through the 12th. And the building-based programs for that will be at Willow River and North Hudson. Any questions?
All those dates that you had with the corresponding programs, is that all on the website? Where would people look to?
Yes, they will all be on the website. Once we open up registration, then everything is posted with all the details on the website.
And all right, so, and generally the dates of earliest registration is what?
March 1st is the when it opens. So,
All right.
couple of weeks.
Any other questions regarding the summer school update? Otherwise, hearing none, we'll move right into secondary science curriculum update.
Excellent. And I will just introduce that briefly as well. So secondary science is in phase 3 of the curriculum improvement process. And phase 3 is about learning experiences. This is the time when teachers and their curricular teams start to plan what students will actually be engaging in under the new iteration of the curriculum. It's an exciting time in the curriculum process because you spend a lot of time setting the stage and talking about those desired outcomes. When you start to plan what it will actually look like, it's an exciting transition. There's a lot that goes on in secondary science. It's a big department with a lot of moving parts. I'm going to turn it over to Ivy Wheeler, and she's going to introduce a curriculum specialist from the middle school and from the high school. Both are outstanding, and they'll tell you a little bit more about this process. And I will turn it over to Ivy.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening. As Dave said, we're going to give an update on secondary science, and here to share with you this evening are Erin Gehring and Mary Beth Elliott. Erin Gehring is an instructional specialist at the high school, and Mary Beth Elliott, an instructional specialist at the middle school. They're going to speak a little bit about phase 3 and what happens in phase 3, and then more specifically what we have done so far this year at the middle school and at the high school. And I will pass it to Mary Beth.
Thanks, Ivy. As Dave kind of alluded to, in phase 1, we focus on desired results, and on this phase 2, evidence of learning. And when we get to phase 3, it's really teachers' favorite phase, because they're able to focus on the learning activities, and they're able to kind of take some ideas right away from meetings that they're having and start using those in their classroom. So on this slide, we have kind of the pieces that make up phase 3, which is designing high quality learning experiences. What do they look like? Teachers are able to have focused discussion on that planning to ensure what learning occurs and how it occurs for all students. They also create a resource rubric to evaluate any materials. And this has been really important, and we've focused on this we've had this focus in phase 3 with language arts and with math. But the teachers go through multiple areas such as the science content, focus of instruction, student materials, teacher materials, assessment, digital resource, disciplinary resources. And then this year we added equity. And we talk about in each one of those areas what specifically we're looking for in a resource. In equity, we talked about that students see the resource themselves. Learners are represented throughout the resources and the images and in the text, and that teachers have the ability to modify the resources to increase the learners' accessibility for all our learners. And it helps us stay focused when we're having sales presentations, because when the sales presentations start to occur, it's easy to lose focus when they present some cool things that a material might be able to do. And so this evaluation tool we create becomes really important. The next thing that we do is that we identify some resources that we'd like to evaluate. We hear from those resources or identify which resources we want to pilot. Then we will be creating unit plans that focus on a unit overview, the length of time the unit occurs, enduring understandings, essential questions, priority standards, assessments, and then the topics that are covered within the unit and the learning activities that will occur. Then we'll go on to build a scope and sequence, and that scope and sequence kind of lays out the duration of our units and the chronological order that it will occur. And by the end of this phase, we also submit any new course proposals. More so that's for the high school than at the middle school. And I'm going to turn it over to Erin that's going to talk about the courses.
So all students at the middle school follow the sequence of Science 6, then Science 7, Science 8. And then when we get to the high school, students have a little bit more flexibility in selecting a pathway. We are always working on making more paths accessible to more students. And so one of the shifts that we made was biology first in 9th grade, and the first year of that was last year. This year we have are in our second year with biology first, and our big bubble is at the chemistry and physics at grade 10 and 11. So some mixed classes right now. And then in our work moving forward, we're really going to focus on how can we open up more classes, make more classes more accessible for all students. Then if you want to go ahead to the next. So with the new science standards, the NGSS and the Wisconsin standards are essentially the same, but there are 3 major components. We have the science and engineering practices, the cross-cutting concepts, and the disciplinary core ideas. The disciplinary core ideas are essentially what your content is. Your cross-cutting concepts are your standards and how they're connected to one another. And the science and engineering practices are probably the biggest shift with these new standards, and that's really how are students demonstrating their learning. One of the other big shifts is using phenomena to drive instruction. And so really it's the idea of using discrepant events, things that make students question and wonder and want to learn, to engage in the thinking and problem solving. There are a lot of resources that are continually becoming available as people have more access to these new standards. But one example is within the Wisconsin standards, they actually have an appendix that provides phenomenon examples to connect the standards and the learning to students with Wisconsin applications, so that we have more equitable access for all students. At the high school this year, we've spent most of our time focusing on learning about the science and engineering practices. Science and engineering practices are those 8 colorful tabs that you see at the top. Each standard, so if you take a look at the white diagram, that is the box around it, the orange box is called a performance expectation. And each performance expectation contains one of those science and engineering practices. And that's the mode in which students should be demonstrating their understanding of that particular content. Mary Beth, do you want me to keep going on the high school?
Go ahead.
Okay, so in process, at the high school, we've been working on professional learning, around the SCPs, and that is our guide to our resource selection. We're also going to be talking, once we have our resources selected, diving more into our assessment practices and how we can shift those practices to align to those science and engineering practices. And then our next steps are, right now, we are in the process of developing a rubric that we're using to evaluate our resources. I have teachers that are just now kind of communicating with me what resources they would like to see. And then I will be reaching out to the reps to get them in so that we can follow the rubric like Mary Beth was explaining earlier. And then once we get those resources in hand, we'll be continuing that assessment work. Typically that would happen a little sooner, but with our timeline this year and with all things COVID, it'll just kind of shift a little bit later than we would like, but it'll happen soon.
And at the middle school, we completed our resource evaluation criteria that I talked about earlier, and we already have evaluated resources, and we identified a high quality resource that we're currently piloting. So we looked at 6 different resources, and we have picked one to pilot that is in pilot right now mode in every grade level. And then our next steps will be to complete the unit plans and then align assessments. And when we align assessments, what we do is we create a series of formative assessments that ensure students learning as they make progress to the goal prior to the end of unit assessment. So those are 2 things that after we pick our resource, we'll be continuing with. And then as a teaching and learning team, we continue to offer support. Tim, if you want to go to that next slide. The curriculum improvement process really drives this work, and we continue to facilitate it as a teaching and learning team. The teachers have met even through the COVID times and collaborated with each other in grade levels and in building level PLC teams. And then Erin and I have continued to meet with PLCs and PLC leaders, as well as support the individual teachers in the curriculum improvement process and in the phase 3 development. And now I think we're on to any questions.
Okay, any questions, board member Sue?
I don't have that page in front, or a slide in front of me of the standards, but I was just curious if many or most of these have a universality to them. Like, now we're listening to the World Health Organization talk about pandemic and so on, and begin to realize that someone in Switzerland or Japan or, South Africa, they sort of all talk the same way. And I just wondered if there's a kind of universality to this list of standards. Does that make sense? I mean, in terms of one's expectations in learning science?
Yeah, so that would actually be the science and engineering practices. Those would be that universal language that a kid or out in the real world using mathematical computational thinking, developing and using models, that's really gearing kids up to be prepared to have conversations outside of the school day and outside of the context of the classroom.
I think that's excellent.
Further questions from board members? Dave, do you have another comment?
I was just going to say, this team has done a great job. We're especially fortunate to have Erin Gehring on the team. She was an outstanding science teacher in a different district and in Hudson. So she brings a lot of expertise. So I was really happy she was here to answer Sue's question.
Okay, maybe we have another one. Heather.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as the parent of a 9th grader struggling with biology, who asked the question that I think many of us have heard from our high school age children who are not planning on being physicians or scientists, why do I have to learn this? I think it's really helpful to see this slide that shows like, it's not so much about what you're learning, it's about the skills you're developing, and seeing these 8 blocks, I think is really helpful. It's too bad that there's not a way that we can easily provide this to all parents, because I think this is the answer to that question, right? The why do I have to learn about cell reproduction? Well, yes, you're learning about cell reproduction, but these are actually the skills that you're developing. So I think that's really helpful to see. Thank you.
Yes, not to mention the critical thinking that's being developed, and in a year where science matters, I think it's really important to develop this curriculum. Yes, Sue.
Oh, this is just a silly question, but do kids in like biology labs and so on, do they still have to like draw what they're seeing, you know, under a microscope, or their leaf identification? Or I just curious. I mean, that was the part I was really good at, was the drawing for my lab books. Students wanted to pay me money to do their lab books, but I think that, do they have that kind of, I mean, you know, there's something to that than just doing everything on a computer.
Do we have an answer to that one?
Aaron?
Yeah, yes, we still use microscopes and we do some of that. But I think it's really shifting to that modeling component, not so much can you draw what you see, but what, how is that going to change, or how is that going to impact, or how is that going to be different over time, and that taking it to that next level. But we definitely still have to start off with those basic skills of how do you use it, how do you manipulate the microscope, and or whatever else it might be as far as equipment that you're using.
Thank you, Aaron.
I want to thank Mary Beth, Aaron, and Ivy for being able to present this, and thank you for your work on the curriculum development. Very important process.
Thank you so much.
All right. And with that, I guess next up is equity audit update. And I'm looking over towards Aaron. You're pulling on your mic. So
That's
I mean,
me.
equity really is something we're intentionally trying to spread throughout all departments and throughout the whole cabinet. But
For sure.
you know, it's important. We have a point person. So thank you, Aaron.
Yeah. Taking the mask off is a clue, I think, right?
Yeah.
Definitely, this has been kind of a cross-department project, and we're really excited about the work that's happening, and looking forward to looking at the results and seeing what improvements we can make for students. Just a short update, our equity audit focus group started today. So they were here or via Zoom all day meeting with student services teams at elementaries and general education teams at a couple of elementaries. Those focus groups will continue tomorrow as well. And then on February 22nd, our community and parent focus groups start. And then throughout the month, I'll be doing middle school and high school and our student focus groups as well. And so just a reminder, that's in addition to the data collection that they're doing about student programming and staffing levels and things like that. Any questions about where we're at with that?
Well, and I know, yes, Rob, go ahead.
Just as far as participation, have we had any struggles with participation so far as filling slots and what have you?
We have not. In terms of staff slots, we really were trying to be pretty comprehensive across all staffing areas to make sure that we had as many voices as possible heard, and making sure that we had sub coverage. I know HR worked really hard on making sure that we had sub coverage so that staff could participate, which is a challenge this year.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And then for those folks at home, as far as this audit goes, there's been some questions on what the scope is. Can you, at a real high level, just touch on what are some of the things that we're having conversations about?
Sure. So one of the things that we're having conversations about are student programming, ranging from our special education programs all the way up to our gifted and talented programs, and just looking at how students are able to access those and what if any improvements we can make to make those programs more accessible to as many students and meet the needs of all of our students. And so are we, potentially are there gaps? I mean, I think we know gaps exist, but how can we identify those and target shifts if needed?
Sure. Thank you.
Mhm.
Right, very good. All right, any other questions from board members? Okay. And moving on to the school start time committee. And I see Tracy
take that.
nods, so,
Mhm.
all right, where are we setting with that?
So the group met on January 28th. We had 25 of our original members who were able to join us. The primary work of that particular meeting was working in small groups to discuss challenges and opportunities as it related to all of the, what we called puzzle pieces to this decision-making. Required instructional time, sleep research, activities outside the school day, childcare and family life, transportation, and then asking them to bring forward any other considerations that weren't identified in those previously. So they spent most of their time in those small groups. Dave and Aaron are also part of that work. And I think we were all in agreement that the small groups worked. It was a really good conversation in all of those groups. So we have our next meeting on March 4th. And we're hoping to bring, one of the requests was to talk to a school that has made the change in their school start times. So we're reaching out to similar sized schools that have had that experience.
Heather?
Tracy, I'm curious. I know when we were doing our attendance boundary work with committees, there was an opportunity for the board to observe. I feel like observing a Zoom meeting is more intrusive because your face is there on the screen. Are these meetings in general recorded so they could be watched, or is there a way without actually attending to just kind of get a sense for a flavor for those conversations?
We did not record. Right now, they are Zoom meetings. I know for the three of us, we just pop in and out of the meeting or
'Cause they're in
of the
breakout
small
rooms,
groups.
Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, that makes it tough.
And just generally, what would be the time frame? I know we have a date for the next meeting, and sometimes it depends on the work that's being done in the interim, but what kind of timeframes beyond that might there be?
We asked them to commit through the end of the school year and hoping that they have their work done. They may decide that they need more time, but that was the commitment that we asked of them as we restarted the committee. I mean, they've already identified a need to, and we knew that going in, that there would have to be some conversation beyond just the committee work. So, like some of the questions that they have raised, some of the themes about, how do we make sure that everybody understands the research, so having some type of opportunity, which they have not discussed yet, for the larger parent community and actual Hudson community to hear about their work and hear about the options that they may be bringing forward.
With that commitment for the committee to meet through the end of the year, is there a hope or expectation of some kind of progress report being given to the board, say in June?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Yes, Bob.
So how many people did you say were involved with this latest?
There were 25 who participated in January. The original group of invited folks, about 60, we never had a full 60. We had representation at that meeting from all of our stakeholder groups, so that was good. So we had students there as well as parents, mental health professionals, staff. So yes, it's smaller than what we originally intended, but I still think the conversation was robust and the different viewpoints were brought forward.
So we don't think we're gonna get to those numbers that we had at the first meeting before? Or?
That 60 or 50, no, I don't. There were at least 10 of those folks who contacted me to just say they couldn't continue to commit beyond. I mean, originally when we asked them to participate, it was, they would have been done long before now.
Thank you.
Right. Carrie, you have a question?
And I'm sorry if, I think you just answered this, but there were students at this most recent?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you for continuing to push this um, along, because waiting for some type of criteria of having at least 50 participants, we could be waiting here another year. And I think it was totally reasonable taking the hiatus and seeing those COVID numbers take off like they did, especially in November. I think it would have been foolhardy to, meet in the teeth of that. But now that recognize that this is going to be around a while, and thankfully the numbers are coming down. Hopefully the Zoom meetings will be able to end soon and we'll be able to meet in person at some point, but being able to keep the momentum going under these circumstances, I would commend you, the group, and thank you for your extra leadership on that. Heather.
So Tracy, clarifying question. It sounds then like if someone were to ask, the earliest impact this group's work would have would be a recommendation that could potentially impact the 22-23 school year, but that would be the very earliest, yeah? If they're not finishing their work until the end of this year, it certainly would not be for this fall. So it would be at the earliest, the 22-23 school year that we'd be talking about. Okay, thank you.
Unless they came forward and said, no change. Yes.
There you go. Thank you for that distinction. All right, next up. Yeah. Next up is the January official student count.
Okay,
Tim, all right.
so you've got the official count for the third, or the second Friday in January, rather. And our numbers overall are slightly better. If you look under that column, which is DPI totals, we went from 5414 up 14 students to 5428. So a slight improvement. If you compare those numbers and you say, when we talked about this in October with the January count, we were down about 240 students. We're down to 10 now roughly. But when you ask where did those kids go, we had homeschool was up about 113. When you look at the numbers for January, it's up about 113 when you compare it to last January. So a lot of those kids went to homeschool. And when you look at open enrollment out of the district, those numbers are up slightly in the September to the January. And if you compare it to last January, they're up about 60. So that accounts for about 173 of the 210 that were down. So that really kind of tells you where they went. The open enrollment out and homeschool are the two biggest impacts that we've had. So, and see, Bruce has a question.
Bruce.
I do. Did we survey any of those folks? I mean, I'm just curious why people would have chosen homeschool versus like virtual learning or IDL. If that's such a big number, did we get any feedback, or are we thinking about getting feedback from those folks?
Yep, we actually surveyed and called them individually, each family, and asked them that question, why they made the choice. And then secondarily, what it might take to bring them back into the system. The homeschool, a lot of that was driven by the fact that there aren't high quality, I shouldn't say it that way, there aren't as many high quality virtual learning experiences for elementary age students. So homeschool for a family that may be already working from home becomes a more viable option.
Right. And I can just anecdotally, knowing one family that huge supporters of one of our elementaries. I won't single out which one it is, and yet they opted to go homeschool because they didn't want to potentially have to go in and out of virtual and in-person learning. That explains that. What I'm not clear on is the open enrollment out. Why? I mean, it's not like there's another district that has had more face-to-face instruction than Hudson. So why are they open enrolling out?
I think many families chose an open enrollment out for a different virtual school so that it could be all asynchronous. That they were wanting something besides our synchronous option for individual distance learning.
All right. But it's not, that's a group that actually didn't get the benefit of our synchronous learning from day one. They just assumed it would be a certain way And then or are a lot of those people that started with our synchronous and then went to open enroll someplace else? Do you understand my question?
I do understand the question. I'm not sure I have the numbers for you exactly. But I would say we did see an increase in open enrollment out to virtual schools, especially at our elementary levels.
I was just curious if that open enrollment out happened after, the first of the year.
It
or
was
if
a mix of
before
both.
we even started.
Yep.
I think, Jamie, I saw a lot of Facebook discussion of elementary parents who were looking for something because they didn't want their kids sitting looking at us. So they didn't want synchronous. They didn't want their kid sitting at a screen all day. And because Hudson really didn't have the asynchronous for elementary, they were getting referred by parents to other options outside of the district where they could get asynchronous, not in person schooling for their elementary kids. So I
Right.
think my hope is that we'll get those kids back. Once we're, that once those parents feel comfortable sending their kids to school again full time, that we're going to get those kids back.
All right. Any others? Yes, Rob.
Yeah, so with regards to the asynchronous conversation, I've been approached by a couple of parents that, who knows what's going to happen with regard to COVID. And they were wondering, is Hudson ultimately going to be able to offer an asynchronous option for elementary kids? Or I don't know, has there been any conversation in that regard?
Sure. And I think that's probably the big question out there, right? And without knowing what next year will bring, we don't know specifically what we'll be able to offer or what we won't be able to offer. What we do know is we're engaged in the process of learning from our current experience, interviewing families. We just had our Teaching Learning Advisory Council meeting last week. The entire focus was learning about the experience. How did you experience this as a family, as a parent? How did your child experience this? Learning from that and then making the best decisions. As we know, there is no perfect program in this environment. There just isn't. The overwhelming feedback we received from families was that they were thankful for the synchronous experience, but we knew going into that it wouldn't work for everyone. So trying to run multiple programs is the challenge. We've already divided teachers' attention quite a bit by having them run IDL and in person at the same time. So running another program becomes problematic, but we'll continue to study it certainly.
All right. Anything else on that? Otherwise, move on to our action portion of the agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda along with expenditures pursuant to the language.
Mr. President.
Yes, Rob.
Move approval of the consent items and that the chief financial and operations officer be authorized to pay bills in the amount of $1,188,503.68.
Second.
Motion by Rob, second by Bruce. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. This consent agenda and expenditures are approved. Next, I would entertain a motion consistent with the language that's in the agenda based upon our prior public hearing.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I move to authorize the administration to request that DPI waive the minimum number of hours of instruction set forth in Wisconsin statute 121.02, parent 1, parent F, for the district's 2020-2021 school year due to the ongoing COVID-19 public health emergency.
Second.
All right, motion by Heather, second by Sue. Is there any discussion? And again, Nick, just clarification. I mean, is this set us apart or make us unique from other districts?
No, this is pretty common and really, other than the early dismissals that we're doing on Wednesdays, otherwise we would normally meet all our requirements. So this is just because we're doing the early dismissals on Wednesdays, you probably won't hit the hour requirements at all levels. And so we're very close, but this gives us that kind of cushion. So that's where we're sitting. So no, this is pretty typical. I think there were close to 50 different waivers we could go for as it relates to COVID and things that we could ask for waivers on. This is really the only one that we felt was something that we needed to do because we've been allowing face-to-face instruction since the beginning of the year. So this is it.
Any further questions on that? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Bruce, second by Carrie. All those in favor of adjournment say aye.
Aye.
Aye.